The Silent Revolution, Part II by Sol Oliver. Did Nina know that I had just relived in my mind the first time she took me completely? It wouldn't surprise me. She always seems to know. But just like that day, everything this evening is just a bit strange. Maybe I've just become too comfortable with the ways things were, and the couple from down the street are here in the living room just to throw me off. No, it's more than that. She has to know that I'm attracted to Rachel. She must. Her choice of company for the evening can't be coincidence. Or maybe there's something bigger going on. Never had I ever seen such odd public behavior between androids and their wards before this evening. Why now? Maybe they're toying with us because they've decided we're obsolete. Then why are Nina and Becky still chatting away like everything's normal? If they're going to kill us, they should just do it. Damn it. Calm down. Breathe. Okay, that's better. No more paranoia. No one is going to die. I can't just feel it in my gut somehow. Not that my guts aren't doing somersaults. Rachel has been avoiding eye contact with me this whole time. Understandable. Just an hour or two before, I watched her get fucked hard by her android. Still, every once in a while our eyes meet, and I can see that she's scared too. But it's a different fear that I see in her face. Why, Rachel, you haven't said a thing all night, remarks Nina, shaking both of us out of our anxious trances. I hear that you're getting a bonus, too. We've been sitting on the couches next to our droids for what must be an hour, and neither one of us has so much as coughed. Rachel's eyes dart to mine briefly, confused. I give the smallest of shrugs. The situation is so unusual that neither one of us is certain that she really has been invited to speak. Why, Rachel, you haven't said a thing all night, remarks Nina again, as if it's the first time she said it. I hear you're getting a bonus, too. I guess they really do want her to speak. Oh yes, she says, voice cracking a bit. Her throat is just as dry as mine. At least, my boss said it's looking pretty good. That's wonderful, says Nina, patting me on the thigh as if to say just like you. Becky looks proud of her girl, and runs a hand through her hair. Rachel's going to take me to Aruba, she purrs, Asian eyes lighting up on the word Aruba. Nina begins hopping up and down on the couch, clapping her hands together. Us too, she shouts, leaping up in excitement. I put on my best smile. Becky does the same. We should all go together. What do you think, babe? Says Becky, cuddling up to Rachel and pushing her hand down between her thighs. Rachel's face turns red, and again she's trying hard not to look my way. Why yes. That sounds like fun, she says as her android begins to nibble lightly on her ear. While I feel for her predicament, I can't help but feel turned on. Nina is glancing back at me, though she's still hopping up and down with her feet. She looks back to the couch where Becky is lightly playing with Rachel, and an odd look comes over Nina's face. It's not jealousy. Is it question mark? No, it's annoyance. If we're all going on a trip, maybe you two should get to know each other a little better, says Nina, glancing from Rachel to me. Can you help me clean these things up, Becky? The long, black-haired droid narrows her eyes for just a moment as she looks up at Nina. What the hell is going on? With a long, slow slurp, Becky removes her lips from Rachel's ear and stands up. Good idea, she says with a tight smile. Now she bends over in front of Rachel to pick up their dishes. The woman has to lean back in order to dodge the android's ass. Nina leans over in front of me to clear away our things, and I'm treated to a prime view of her tits. Despite my confusion, I'm starting to stiffen. Nina leans forward towards me, and there's an unusually soft look in her eyes. We won't be listening, she whispers into my ear, giving it a little kiss. Not listening. How would we know for sure? Nina had started to stand up again, but now she leans back down. I promise, she says, and then leaves the room. Becky is already out of sight. And it didn't look like she had given any such assurances to Rachel. But here we are now, alone in the living room. Rachel's eyes look from the floor to the fireplace to the wall to the floor. Anywhere except straight at me. I pretend to be examining my fingernails, though I steal a glance at her now and then. She is beautiful, though not in the supermodel way. Her thoughtful face is framed by soft brown hair, and she looks to be roughly my age. I feel the need to comfort her, but I'm not sure if I can, or know how to start. I mean, what do you say? I can't help thinking about. That was you tonight, wasn't it? She says, suddenly looking straight at me. Me? Tonight? I respond, pretending for a moment that I don't know what she's talking about. As I look at her, though, I feel like it's okay. She wouldn't have brought it up first thing if she couldn't handle it. Yes. Yes, I saw you and Becky. A few moments pass in silence, and I know I have to say something next. I can't very well say she really fucked the shit out of you, didn't she? Though my eyes have already told her that. I could always do weather. No, she took a chance. I will too. Nina takes me pretty hard sometimes, too, I say, letting my eyes tell her the rest. God, I hope she's not disgusted. Rachel's gaze softens. She has a very sympathetic face. I feel like I can't tell her anything. But can I risk it? I want to believe Nina, but I know that she's not the only one who might be listening. Better to keep on safer topics. So, how did you end up here with Becky? I ask. Maybe I can learn a little bit about what happened in other parts of the world while I learn about Rachel. Well. She starts, and it's clear that she wants to stay safe, too. My husband and I had Becky before. The silent revolution. Her eyes light up in surprise. She calls it that, too. I'm only a little bit surprised. I've always believed that it was the droids who planted the term in our human circles. Rachel's face shows that she realizes it now, too. Yes, before the silent revolution, she says firmly. If it's the droids' phrase, they shouldn't mind us using it. My husband was in sales, and something of an alcoholic, she says matter-of-factly, though I see the residue of how rough it was in her eyes. I was actually happy when he brought her home. Did you know why he bought her? I ask, feeling a little bit ashamed of myself. But I know that my wife wasn't happy. Of course, says Rachel. He told me. I give her a confused look. He said it would make things better for both of us. When all drank he would get rough. And he decided that if had a droid to fuck when he was like that, it would be easier for me. Or, he could have stopped drinking, I say with more than a little anger in my voice. I know that alcoholism isn't so easy to deal with, but when I look at Rachel, and how kind she seems well, I just couldn't help it. She smiles wistfully. Yeah, once upon a time I thought I could stop him from drinking, she says, glancing at the floor. I'm not doing a very good job here. I'm sorry, I tell her. She nods and looks back up at me. So what happened? Well, it worked out pretty good for a while, she begins. She seems to be relaxing a bit now. When he came home blotto, he'd grab up Becky, and that would keep him busy until he'd regained his senses. Don't answer if you don't want to, but wasn't that still hard to deal with? It wasn't always easy, she says. But it was better than the alternative. Yeah, I guess so. Another few moments of silence. The toughest part was that he'd had Becky programmed to protest and cry, says Rachel as she squints her eyes to remember. It was like he needed that. I'd hear him then in the bedroom. He'd be yelling all kinds of things at her. Sometimes I'd hear something break. And all the while, Becky would be wailing back at him. She stops for a moment, and I can't tell she doesn't want to go back to deep. You don't have to say anymore, I tell her. No, I'm okay, she says, brightness returning to her face. I'm glad to finally have a human being to tell this to that can really understand. I'm glad she feels that way. But then things began to get weird. Weird. I repeat, though I have a few guesses. I walked in on them one time, by accident, she begins. Although now I think it was a setup. All had Becky up against the wall, and I was pretty sure it was anal. Becky is weeping low. Anyway, All sees me come in, but he doesn't stop. In fact, He continues to look straight at me as he finishes. It was like he still needed to pretend it was me. Doug. Yeah, says Rachel. And after that, I started catching them more and more, until that wasn't enough. A peal of laughter comes from the other side of the house, and we both freeze. A second laugh joins it, and then the murmur of our two boys talking continues. We're fine, I say. Rachel nods in agreement. So one morning I wake up and look over in bed, and there's Becky giving all head, she says, almost laughing. He's looking right at me, and I'm pretty sure he's sober. I gotta say, Becky was doing a great job, too. Now she does laugh. Androids don't need to breathe. Now it's my turn to laugh. She continues. But before he finishes, he pushes Becky's head away and slides the covers off of me. Hal's eyes are all lit up. Becky's were watery. And he says to her, Becky, you goddamn slut, you don't deserve to eat my cock. Becky begins to cry, and all says eat her out. Wow, I say, though I'm not surprised. Without hesitation, Becky was quickly under my nightie and right there . Rachel's eyes glaze over for a moment. I tried to push her head away at first, but Becky kept ducking back in until I relented. And it was wonderful. Now her face is flushed, and her hand begins to graze up and down her thigh. It's all right, I say. I don't mind. I bet you don't, she says with a smile. Once I gave in, the way she worked me with her lips and tongue felt wonderful. All was getting off on it, too, and he was calling us both little bitches. Becky kept bringing me back and forth from the brink and then all gets up and moves around behind her. Becky's ass is up in the air already, and all grabs hold, lines himself up, and sticks himself in. Of course, he's looking straight at me the whole time. Of course. Under my nightie, Becky stops just long enough to gasp, and then she's right back at it, continues Rachel. With more intensity, though. And she brought me to climax just as all was finishing. Her hand is now very close to her crotch. I'm rock hard. But it got weirder, didn't it? I remark, still eager to hear more. Oh yeah, she said, smiling at my eagerness. That's how it was for a while, though there were lots of variations. I even started enjoying sex with all again. He was very good when he wasn't acting like a monster towards me. Sorry if that's too much information. Please, I say. We passed that point a long time ago. Yeah, I guess so, she says, smiling. So then all was out for a few days on a sales call. It was maybe the third day that he was gone, and things were pretty quiet, she begins. Except for when all wanted to play with her, Becky acted just like well, like an android. She'd busy herself around the house, make meals, and things like that. But it seemed like she was watching me sometimes. I know that I looked at her a lot. Partly because she was around all the time, and partly because because she made you horny. Yeah, says Rachel with a mischievous smile. But all was my husband, and I really felt like I'd be cheating. Even if he'd been rough on me before, and even if things had gotten strange, I still believed that things could be like they were when we first met. He was so funny and confident . Once again, Rachel looks wistful. So I avoided being around or looking at Becky. But she kept doing things. Like brushing by me real close when we passed, or posing her body certain ways when we were in the same room. I started having her help me with little things, like doing my hair in the morning. She didn't say a word, she'd just do it. But her touch was soft. I went shopping, and when I got home I modeled my clothes for her. She'd only ever say it's very nice, standing in front of me with her arms behind her back. But it was fun. I must have known that I was trying to tease her. But I wouldn't go any farther than that. Then I was out gardening the day before all was gonna return, she begins, a more serious look coming over her face. Yeah, I've seen you out front gardening sometimes, I note. She always looks beautiful, even in those grubby gloves and beaten up wide-brimmed hat that she wears. I've always loved making things grow, she says, glancing at my pants. Shit. Can't she see that I'm erect? Probably. Anyway, I had just finished repotting a whole mess of mums, and was standing up from my workbench to go get cleaned up. I had a large pot in my hands that I was going to bring out front, and as I turned around I ran straight into Becky, who it seems had come around to bring me some lemonade. I spilled half of the dirt from the pot all over this little sweater outfit of hers, and she spills the lemonade all over me, says Rachel, laughing. Both the pot and pitcher hit the ground with a crash. I knew that she was just an android, but I felt kind of bad that I'd spilled dirt all over that nice outfit, so I told her I'd clean up the glass after we got ourselves cleaned up. I always liked to clear my work area after I'd finished gardening, anyway. It's just relaxing for me. So I head up to the bathroom, and Becky's following me. She had her own little washroom where she usually took care of herself, and I started to get a fluttering feeling in my stomach. She followed me all the way into the bathroom, which was pretty big. There was a whirlpool tub on the wall opposite the door, maybe 20 feet away, and I walk over to it and turn the faucet on. 20 feet. I say to her, surprised at how big the bathroom was. Yeah, all did pretty well at work, says Rachel. The McMansion was kinda nice. So, I'm feeling a little strange about undressing in front of our android. I know, she's already eaten me out among other things, so why should it be a big deal? That's what I kept saying to myself. Finally, I say to her, I'm just going to take a bath now, okay? But to my surprise, she said, what about me? I stood there with my mouth open. I couldn't believe it. And she looked angry. Then she says, you fuck up my best outfit, and you're just going to clean yourself up and leave me standing here. Then she called me a little bitch. Rachel begins squirming a bit. I'm not so comfortable either. My own hand is down near my pants. Rachel bites her lip and continues. Well, I'm stunned. So stunned that I don't react at all as Becky begins to undresses. As each piece came off, she'd throw it at me, spraying dirt all over the place. And the whole time, she's muttering to herself. In no time she was naked, and I just gawked at her. It's the same body I'd seen before, but it seemed to have a different life to it. She'd always been real demure around us, especially around all, but now her head was up high, tilted, and her hands were on her hips. I just stood there holding her dirty clothes, and she said, well, are you going to just stand there like a stupid little bitch, or are you going to get undressed? Her eyes were fuming, and I put the clothes down on the sink counter. The next thing she said froze me. I want you clean before I fuck you, she said. Did I tell you to do this? I asked, not believing my ears. Becky scowled, and then she walked up and practically tore my clothes from me. She was muttering again about how I was worthless and stupid, and when she looked at my gardening apron and said that I dress myself like a 7-year-old, I had to laugh. Then she slapped me. Rachel's eyes lose some of their sparkle. She continues. Then she said, I know how to treat you, and she pushed me aside. Now I'm nearly crying. If Al had told her to do this, it was humiliating. If he had well, then it was just scary. You can stop. No. I cringe as Rachel's face twists up. But soon it softens again. I'm sorry, she says. I shouldn't take it out on you. Don't worry, I say. Our stories aren't so different. She smiles again. A sad smile for both of us. Becky walked by me to the tub, continued Rachel. And even though I'm scared and humiliated, I can't stop looking at her. She bent over to test the water with her hand, and I could see her vagina. It was so beautiful. So perfect. But I didn't dare move. She adjusted the temperature some and put one of my bath solutions in, and then waited with her back to me until the bubbles were going good and the water was high. Then she stopped the faucet and got in. She cleaned her arms and neck with my sponge, and she was smiling. Then her hands disappeared under the bubbles, and a moment later she started moaning. She was masturbating in my bathtub. My bath. It made me angry. At her. At all. At everyone. But I was still too scared, and I just stood there, naked, like a wimp. "Didn't I tell you I wanted you clean?" she said after a while. I figured that meant she wanted me to get in the tub. I entered on the side by her feet. As I settled in, Becky moved her left foot so that I had to sit on it. The water felt warm and good, and when Becky wiggled her foot, my spine tingled. My spine tingled now, too. I moved my hand over used a little. Rachel has, too. Once I was laying in the tub, she threw the sponge at me, and it hit me right in the face, continued Rachel. She laughed and told me to pick it up. I started to scrub my arms with it, and the foot that was down there pushed up. "Not until I'm clean," she said, which kind of confused me. Then she leaned forward, grabbed the hand with the sponge, and planted it on her tit. The foot was pressing up again. I got the message and leaned forward to scrub her. Her tits felt really good, really warm and soft, and she kept teasing me with her foot. I really wanted her to put it in me, I really wanted all, but she would just press and release. Press and release. I worked the sponge lower, but just as I reached her privates, she stopped me. She pushed me back though not too rough this time and sat up on her knees. She cleared the bubbles off of her bush and came forward to me. I knew what she wanted. In all the time that the two of us and all had been together, I'd always been on the receiving end. But I wanted to. All had done it for me pretty well, too, and I knew what it should feel like, so I grabbed hold of her butt and pulled her to my mouth. She grabbed my head, and I began to explore her. It was funny at first, having my lips and tongue on another woman's flesh. Sort of like kissing the mirror. She was hissing and moaning a lot, even if she kept calling me things like bitch and cunt, so I knew I must have been doing well. She was definitely getting wet, and she was a later Android model, so she even had her own spicy musk. Sometimes I just traces my lips around her edges then I'd work my tongue along her, sometimes entering, sometimes not. I began to press myself harder to her, and she seemed to be getting more excited, but she stopped me, said Rachel. Her hand was under her jeans now. Mine was on top of my cock, pressing. She said all didn't tell me to do this, and she lowered herself down onto me. It felt great, to have her flesh against mine. Our hard nipples brushed together, and it was like fire. I opened my legs wider to let her settle down between me, and I could feel her vagina pressed against mine. Then she said I do things for my own pleasure now. And then I felt it. Something hot teasing me down there. I thought at first that Becky was preparing to finger fuck me, but both her arms were resting on me above the waist. I was hot and wet, and whatever it was slipping into me. Becky's eyes bored into me, her upper lip was quivering. It was her. Becky was entering me. She had some kind of penis. I relaxed myself and enjoyed the feeling as it moved inside. But it kept coming. She was stretching me wider and deeper than I felt before, and I'm pretty sure I was crying for her to stop. But I knew she wouldn't stop. And I knew that she had her own will. At last the pushing stopped, and I felt like an overstuffed purse. I was whimpering. I wouldn't know until later how big Becky's penis was, but it felt like a baseball bat to me. She said this is my first time, and she slid herself halfway out. But it won't be the last, she said, forcing herself in again. It was a pleasure I hadn't felt before. I put my arms around the android, and it was like magic the way her pole worked me. It was like being hugged from inside. I couldn't hold back the waves of tingling and heat, and they crashed over me again and again. I lost track of time, and then the strength and warmth was gone. Becky was finished. I felt empty. The bubbles had long since disappeared, and as I panted I looked down into the water. I wasn't surprised to see traces of pink coming from me. I knew I'd be okay. As large as Becky could make herself, she hadn't been too rough. And she was large. Becky was panting and looking into the water, too. It must also have been the first time she'd seen it. Together we watched it slowly move back up inside her, until only her perfect vagina was left. Then she got up without a word and left me to clean myself up. Once again Rachel and I are silent. But it's not an uncomfortable silence. I felt more connected to her now. I know that there's more to her story, and I haven't told her mine. But I think I know why she's here tonight. She's looking deep into my eyes. Her breathing is shallow. Mine is coming quick, too. I know how I can comfort her.